Welcome to The Patient Physician, a space for doctors to explore their physical, mental, and financial wellness. Your peers and industry leaders will destigmatize institutional perceptions while redefining success, money, and personal care. Get ready to pull back the curtain because here, you are both patient and physician.
Welcome to The Patient Physician. My name is Paul Smith, and I am joined today by my co-host, Chris Fulbright. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, my friend.
Today, we're joined by our very own Erin Anderson, a CPA with a unique background that bridges agriculture, medicine, and business. Erin earned her bachelor's degree in agricultural economics, let's say that 5 times fast, right? And accounting, and her master's degree in agriculture from Oklahoma State University. She became a CPA in 2018 and has since built her career around tax planning and preparation, working in both industry and public accounting before joining PRS in December 2021. And we've loved her ever since.
Right.
What it makes Erin's perspective especially valuable is her connection to the medical field, which is truly, Chris, one of the reasons why we just thought she was just such a unique fit. And we've been right ever since. But she is married to a physician currently completing his residency in anesthesiology, giving her firsthand insight into the financial challenges and opportunities that come with a career in medicine. Originally from Southern Oklahoma, Erin and her husband have been married for 9 years and have 3 beautiful children. They plan to return to their hometown area once her husband completes residency in 2026. And with that, big congratulations because he just finalized his contract negotiations.
Yes.
Yay. Welcome to the show, Erin Anderson.
Yes. Thank you guys so much. I'm so excited to be here. And hearing that introduction, it's like, oh my gosh, it's awesome to think about the unique perspective, how I've arrived with you guys. So I'm very excited to talk to y'all and share that perspective that I have today.
Well, we've always known that there was a uniqueness about not only your perspective in being a CPA, living and having a relationship with a physician in training, but also just the understanding of what it is to live and have a relationship with somebody who's in training, right? So you not only know from the numbers standpoint, the tax perspective, things like that, but I think there's that relational connection to the clients that you work with. And so we're looking forward to be able to have this conversation with our audience and share that. But I think it would be great if we can break into some of the tax questions and talk about some of those things, if that's okay. And then we'll make you cry at the end of the show or something like that when we bring up the challenges that come with being a physician's wife in training. So let's just start with something simple. Start with how you even chose this field of study and what attracted to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I remember I went into college and thought I was going to go to vet school, that agricultural background, took one biology and was like, yeah, not for me. Same semester I took an accounting class and just really loved it. And from there transitioned to the accounting world. It just made sense in my mind. And so it was an easy transition. And so I got my accounting degree and then started dabbling in tax preparation. I started my career in oil and gas accounting, which is another unique set of accounting there, but learned a lot from each job that I've taken. I've taken some experience along the way and eventually sat for my CPA exam and decided that taxes was what I really love doing, which I know is weird, but I own that. And I love to work on a tax return and solve the puzzle. And that's kind of accounting in general for me is being able to work through something analytically and being able to help present that to a client at a level of understanding that they can feel confident to know what's happening. So that's why I guess how I ended up in accounting and tax is kind of the summary. Didn't want to be a vet.
You say it was weird. The weird thing I've always told Chris, and I tell this to the clients that we work with jointly as well, is You're a great CPA, great with numbers. What's weird is you have a great personality to boot. It's odd to see that combination together. That no offense to any other CPAs or accountants out there, but you know what I mean.
Just lost all of the CPAs.
I know. I'm sorry. It is. It's just reality.
We
right?
do have
You're a unicorn, right?
Yeah.
So.
I appreciate that. It definitely is. I do love, as part of this job, obviously there's a ton of client facing interaction that happens. And I do find a lot of enjoyment in those conversations. And I understand that is unique. We've had some firms where we had the accountants that you just put them away and let them do the work, and they didn't have to deal with the client. So it is a little bit uncommon. It's totally all right. You're not wrong.
Well, look, for our doctors, we have doctors as well that have that get complimented on great bedside manner, or they connect well when they walk into a room. And so I think it is skill sets, but you have to be conscious of it. Like you have people on your team that are very technically sound, but they may not be client facing. Right? And so I would encourage anyone, right, to be better at communication and skills. But tax, we can get focused on the numbers, and there's that what you've told us, the compliance part of it, right? But then there's the connection piece as well. Is how do I help someone understand what these numbers mean to them? Not just I'm writing a check back or I'm not, right? And that is a wonderful skill set that when we were looking to add a CPA to the team, I've shared with you that we had a lot of people that we went through, and one of the things is we knew we needed somebody who had a skill set to be able to interact with our clients. That's definitely something that I think, whether it be a physician who's listening right now or a CPA or someone else, the conscious effort of connecting with people to be able to share that is a great benefit.
And that's a lot of feedback that I get is people will just tell me, hey, thank you for explaining that to me and taking the time so that I understand what this means or what it doesn't mean. And that feedback I appreciate that, because I do want clients to feel, heard, and that they are in agreement to what's going on, not just a blind recommendation behind something. And so I appreciate that feedback when people say, hey, thanks for just stopping and helping me understand whatever the situation may be. So,
I had a pretty generic question I was going to ask initially, but I want to stick with this for a second, because as we're talking through it, I'm wondering if, you can always look at the numbers and do a great job, as we said, but have you had an occasion where, because you got to know the client better, because you were able to be more relational and more relatable, either because you're in it, that you were able to actually help them a little bit better, understanding their situation to help them in their specific tax situation a little bit better?
Yeah. And I can think of instances where maybe I haven't made a recommendation that was groundbreaking, that changed, maybe they had an implementation from a prior CPA or something like that, but just stopping and explaining, well, here's the reason that you have an S corporation. It's so we can save in payroll taxes. And if we do a reasonable salary, and explaining what that means and where the savings comes in. I didn't save them any additional taxes. They already had that strategy in place, but now they understand, oh, this is what I'm doing. And maybe it takes another step where, okay, so now I can do a solo 401k and fund that. And if I pay myself more, I can put more into that versus, paying more in payroll taxes. And so it gets their mind thinking about things too, that further opportunities that may exist, but I may have not even brought an opportunity. I just helped someone understand what was happening.
I think that's probably a bigger issue, just lack of time. And you have a specific amount of time. It's crunch time. You got to have them done by a certain date, et cetera. But just lack of time to take and explain some of these things. And not everybody even has the desire or the bandwidth to understand it. But, taking the time is certainly good. And it sounds like you've had good reception when you do take the time to do that.
For sure. I definitely have those clients that are like, yeah, please just send me the forms to sign and we got it. So there's both sides of the coin that we do. And I'm happy to work with each. So it's wherever you fall.
Yeah, that's great. Well, let's just ask probably one of the broadest questions. What are the most common mistakes that you see physicians make?
So probably one of the biggest one is kind of an easy one. Not looking at what you're earning or paying in taxes, right? So not stopping. I'll have some people come to me and they have a paycheck and I'm like, well, can you tell me what you're withholding? And they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, have you ever looked at your pay stub? So, and that's not just necessarily a physician, but generally across the board, right? Mm-hmm. Like when we get a paycheck, let's just take a peek. What's going on in there? And I know it can be tough to interpret, but if you're working with a CPA, Even if it's not a planning relationship, it's a really easy email to shoot over and say, hey, what are my withholdings looking like? Am I okay? Am I going to get a bomb whenever I file in the spring? My wife is also working or my spouse is working. Do I need to consider their income? That's a really common one that I see, especially in dual physician households. Each of them, they're married, and each is withholding at a married rate, but they're each making $500,000 a year. And so effectively, they're just not holding enough taxes. And so they get these large bills when it comes time to file. And so we can make recommendations around adjusting that, and, making sure that it's happening equally throughout the year so that you don't have that large bill due at filing. So that's one that comes to mind. The other one, it's hard, maybe this isn't necessarily a physician thing, but, there's a lot of opportunities and we can bring a lot of ideas to it, but implementation is just as important as bringing you the idea. And so that's something that I find challenging with our physician clients, is that it's like, yeah, that's a great idea, but it's going to take some heavy lifting from you to be able to, and I can do as much as I can do, but there's some things that I have to pass on to you to be able to sign the document or send me the form or whatever it may be that I'm requesting. And so sometimes that's a hurdle I feel like I face, is that we're not able to do all the things that we could do, just because of the nature of, my husband, these things don't happen in 8 to 5. They have to happen typically after work or on the weekends or things like that. So those are two that come to mind that are pretty common that I face with physicians.
So you talked about married, not married, and what is, a big jump from, we see that happen most often when people are coming out of training and into practice. Maybe they've filled out their paperwork the exact same they used to, but they've had a jump in income so they can get caught off guard. What's the easiest way for them to fix that?
Yeah, so that's a really common scenario I see, especially that first year out of training, whenever people transition from either residency or fellowship and they have that new attending salary that's much, much larger. That first half of the year, you withheld at probably a 10% effective rate, and that was totally fine, because if you earned that salary for the entire year, that would likely be what you would pay. But then you have this massive increase the second half of the year. And so that effective tax rate gets drug up essentially. And so one way to do that is first just look at your pay stub and see how much taxes is coming out. And then once you've determined that, sometimes an easy fix is to, whether you're filing single or married on your actual tax return, if you're not withholding enough, to just simply change what they call your Form W-4 to single. So that's whenever you onboard with HR, they have all that paperwork. There's a form in there that you'll fill out. Starting with single is a really easy way to at least start the process. But I would really encourage, like, if physicians or clients in general are like, hey, is this going to be enough? Am I going to be okay? Just have someone like your CPA just take a look at that and see, we do a ton of scenario analysis where we look and see, here's your income, here's your spouse's income, here's how much you're withholding, here's what we're seeing your tax bill or refund's going to be due. And so the steps would be, look at your paycheck, change your status, or add some additional withholdings, and then maybe get a second opinion just to confirm would be the.
So can you break it down a little bit? Because I think we're going to have some people that really understand that, and then some that just go, why would I go from married to single? I'm married. They're just thinking about it categorically as their actual status versus what does that do for them when they make that change in terms of the tax? Why is that the case?
That's a really great question. And so whenever we file the tax return, right, we have a status of single, head of household, filing jointly, whatever that status may be. And so whenever we complete the Form W-4, in theory, that should be the same as whatever your filing status should be. However, whenever we have situations, especially in physicians, who have maybe moonlighting pay, call pay, what is the RVUs, where your pay is based on variable factors that it's not consistent across the board. Sometimes just adding like an additional withholdings of, say, $2,000 per paycheck really may not be inaccurate, because it's a fixed amount versus a percentage. Whereas if we have someone who will file a tax return that is married, we change that status on their W-4 to single. It's a percentage base now, so that we're based on their income, we're going to hold at a higher percentage as if you were going to file that tax return as single. So it's not saying that we're going to file the return as single. It's just going to withhold more taxes for you, so that when we do file that, hopefully we have a zero balance due at filing. So, but that's a really important distinction. Yeah.
Do you find that people sort of still have the mindset of rather preferring to have a balance due or owing a little bit or what?
It's total mixed bag. I have some who are like, if I owe a red cent, if I don't get a refund, I can't take my annual vacation. So if I don't get $10,000 back, and then I have those that are like, no way, I'm going to get a refund. I'm going to wait till the very, very last second. The ones that are hard is the ones that it's a really common misconception where people are like, well, I can just pay my taxes on April 15th. That's when they're due, which is true. But if we don't pay estimated payments along the way, if there's a balance due, you could be penalized. There's lots of caveats. W-2s, withholdings act differently than estimated payments and some things like that. But it's not always a guarantee that just because you have a balance due at filing that you couldn't possibly get a penalty in addition. So I like to remind clients of that as well. Some are like happy to take the trade-off. They're like, I'll hold on to my cash. And that's great too. We have that strategy that we do. It's just being aware that that's a possibility as well.
So the withholding on the pay stub is one way, right?
Yes.
And then I've seen you with some other clients where maybe they've transitioned to this new job and there's some retirement type savings that they maybe weren't aware of, or they've been adjusting their income. That's another way that you can help them save on taxes and move towards retirement savings, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And, we've talked a lot about like the W-2 positions, but we do a lot of our client base here at PRS Tax is we do a lot of 1099 contractors, whether it be locums or, there are several specialties that tend to have contractor roles, ER, anesthesia specifically come to mind. And so we do a lot of review around those clients with estimated payments, right? So that's like a whole other separate conversation. But we have a lot of experience and knowledge around not only making the estimated payments there, but strategies that we can implement, the S corporations, the solo 401ks, what other deductions can we take advantage of if we have that status of self-employment versus just the W-2.
So how do they differ between W-2 and 1099 contractors? What are the different strategies you're talking mostly about with clients?
Yeah. So the W-2, we're going to look at employee benefits, right? We're going to maximize every dollar depending on the client's preference. That's one of the very first questions I ask whenever I talk. I can make a recommendation to save you $50,000 in taxes, but maybe that doesn't align with your financial goals. And so maybe you want that cash on hand to be able to invest in real estate or something like that. So first question is let's talk about what your goals are and make sure that we are aligned with that conversation. But from there, we start looking at employee benefits, maximizing retirement plans, deferred comp plans that may be afforded, HSAs if they have them, basically whatever we can get our hands on from an employee benefit. Because it is, unfortunately, as most of those W-2 physicians know, it's pretty black and white. There's not a lot of wiggle room when we go to filing taxes. What you earn is what's reported. And so it's a little more restrictive, I would say, in what's available to us. Whereas the contractors, we're going to look at strategies like the S corporation, business deductions that we may be able to take. If they have coverage, sometimes we have partnerships that may have retirement funding for those people. A lot of times we don't. And so we look at opening solo 401ks and paying a reasonable salary to be able to justify that status and making sure that we're paying the payroll taxes that's due there, but also the estimated payment, which can be really confusing as that's implemented. And so we walk clients through that situation the first year that they do it. Once we get into a pattern with those contractors, once they've gone through a year of here's how this looks, it's a lot easier and they feel a lot more confident in what's happening. But it's a very different mentality than the W-2 position where I go to work, they send me a paycheck, and that's the last time I have to think about it.
A couple of times I would say that it seems like more recently, some people have had the opportunity to select to be 1099 versus being W-2 employed.
Yeah.
Is there a typical, absolutely do this, or does it depend? What would you say in that situation if they have that choice?
Yeah, I literally ran through this scenario yesterday with a client, and it's very situational dependent, depending on how much you earn, where you live, what your other situation looks like. But most oftentimes, the physicians who are above, well, I don't even want to put a generality. Typically, you're going to be better off to do the contractor status if you're going to maximize retirement, take advantage of deductions and things like that. So it's not a guarantee like across the board, but it's definitely worth exploring. Like I know for us personally, Jordan and I, we ran through scenarios to look at, if we could earn more in a W-2 versus doing a 1099 role, and it actually netted out about the same. So like, even though we were going to have more gross income, our bottom line was effectively going to be the same. And so that's an important consideration to make whenever you're looking at those contracts.
You've talked about a sub-S a couple of times. Can you just touch on that real quick? Why does that keep popping up as a tax idea that you share with people? We don't have to get into the details of it, but just to share as somebody's, Paul and I talk about this a lot, and the idea for the most part of the people that listen to us are out, they're in between rounds, they're walking into the car, they're doing they have headsets in, and a little phrase like that may stick with them.
Yeah.
Why would a CPA keep bringing up that?
Yeah. And most of the people that have done any research into anything, they at least know that phrase. It's all over.
They want to share that with you. When
everybody's
that's their lead.
Yeah. What does this really mean? But it's a great tool when it's used properly, right? So there are instances when it doesn't make sense, but for people who are in a 1099 contractor role where they don't have any additional income, what that S corporation election does, we'll create a PLLC in some states, it depends, but usually it's a PLLC. And then we'll elect to have that PLLC taxed as an S corporation, and it moves it from a sole proprietor to an S corporation. So it creates a separate tax return. And so what happens then is typically if we're a sole proprietor, all of that income that we generate is subject to Social Security and Medicare taxes. Now, there's caps on Social Security where you get above a threshold, you don't have to pay that anymore. But you're still going to pay Medicare taxes. You're still going to pay additional Medicare taxes, and so it can add up pretty significantly if you're talking about $400,000, $500,000 of income. So what happens when we make an S corporation election? We transition to what they call a Schedule E on the tax return from a Schedule C. And that income is the only portion of that income that's the S corporation that's subject to Social Security and Medicare taxes is the portion that we set as a reasonable wage. So if you earn $500,000, $500,000, we set a $200,000 reasonable wage. We'll pay Social Security and Medicare taxes on that $200,000, and then the rest, the $300,000, will flow through to you as it's still income, it's still taxable. It's just not subject to Social Security and Medicare taxes. I do want to point that out. There's been some confusions. They're like, you knew that wasn't taxable. It's like,
I didn't have taxes on that. Yeah,
I haven't taken it out of the account though.
Yes,
it's still in the account. Why am I paying taxes? Yeah,
100%. It's still in my business account. Is it taxable? Absolutely, yes. Distributions are. I'm not going to say they're irrelevant, but please note that is very important. So
that's not the IRS trigger of what's taxable.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
For somebody who is working in that capacity, they're looking for as many deductions as they possibly can. Well, we all are, right? Obviously, and this is definitely an inside joke, but there's a difference between tax avoidance and tax evasion, right?
It's only a joke unless you get caught, Paul.
I know.
The joke's very funny until the IRS guy says, "Well, go back to your joke I said on the podcast."
No, I'll leave that one where it is.
Now we've offended the CPAs and we've put the IRS guys on more.
I know. I've almost. That was unintended the very first time that analogy came back out, for sure. Yeah. I mean, let's just leave it there. But anybody that wants to know that, I'll finish the rest of that joke off. But so are there any specific things that are obvious things that they are missing that they should pick up, whether they're deductible? And then on top of that, are there easy ways for them to track this? I think throughout the year, even, being in this industry, it's like, oh, I forgot to look at that. I forgot to look at this. And then you're just scrambling at tax time, trying to gather everything. And you just, at least my feeling, I wished I would have, tracked that better.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and that's a great point. Yes. So, and this is a little bit frustrating too. So like, we have two worlds that this question applies. We have our W-2 world, which you're pretty much like, no, basically unreimbursed employee expenses don't exist anymore. There's deductions on a personal level, mortgage interest, charitable contributions, things of that nature that absolutely do apply across the board. And then there's things for like business expenses for physicians that is a totally separate deduction conversation. And for the people who have the business side of it, I really encourage those people to either open a separate account to have that income deposited into those expenses flow out of. That's the best way to track things for filing and in the eyes of the IRS, right? Like we have a PLLC, we have a separate bank account. This is a legitimate business that we're operating. It gives us a little more structure there. But for everything else, I don't really know that I have a good solution. Honestly, like sometimes a folder in an inbox, or it's like, oh, there's a receipt. I'm gonna kick that over to like keep up with that for the year is a really
That's
good.
fine. Yeah.
We have no complaints about that. The separate bank account for the business owners, absolutely. And then like our software here that we've implemented, we have a really great checklist that's like, hey, by the way, we need your mortgage interest and that 1099 from XYZ company. And it gives a really great like checklist for our clients to know like, oh yeah, I got to go grab that interest statement from my Chase account, something that you may not think about. Most of our documents now are electronic. So you can get an electronic version pretty simply, but that's really the best way is either having like a separate folder or something like that to keep up with that information.
Let me ask it a little different than Paul. So I think often when we talk to people and we say, who does your taxes or who's your CPA? Or whatever that is. That's an after the fact. Here's how much I made. They send the documents into to whatever software or whoever it is or whatever that is. There's the other part where you spend a lot of your time.
Yeah.
And honestly, this is where we see you bringing tremendous value to people's tax saving, their clarity. And it goes to exactly what Paul's question was. How do we proactively keep these things top of mind?
Yeah.
I think it's one of the greatest value adds that your team brings is tax planning. Can you talk a little about that? Because both this goes into withholding, goes to the relationship, goes to communication. And I think this is where we can step in, or you and your team can step in and really, one, save someone on taxes by sharing the ideas, give them enough time to implement on your ideas, right? And then also bring that top of mind where you have someone like Paul who's putting stuff in a drawer and you go, hey, here is a way to be able to save these in a systematic way so that at the end of the year, you're not, pulling these things together. Do you mind spending some time on the difference between you call it tax compliance versus tax planning.
That's exactly the terminology. And I think the CPA industry as a whole I think there's been a shift for sure, but typically, I'll have clients come to me and they'll say, well, my CPA is not bringing me ideas, or they're not letting me know. All they're doing is filing my tax return. And I'm like, well, are you paying for tax planning? And they're like, well, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, what are you paying for? And there's this like question. They don't really know what's going. And previously, even I would say in our firm, we didn't really designate the distinction between the two services. And so we've implemented some software that's really helped us and our clients to understand, here's what I'm paying for, here's what it entails. But there are really two distinct services. So the compliance piece, right? The preparation, we have to do this every year because the IRS will come get us. Just kidding. They don't really do that. But this is something that we're just required to do, right? We compile the tax return, we submit it to the reporting agency, and we go on about our business. There can be opportunities in those types of relationships. Maybe sometimes whenever I file a return with someone who's not a tax planning client, I may make a recommendation like, hey, if you go fund an HSA before April 15th, you can, save a few $1,000s or something like that. There may be opportunity, but there may not, especially if we file an extension or something like that. So kind of what I say is like, what's done is done, versus the tax planning relationship is where we're proactive, right? So we're going to meet a couple times a year ahead of tax filing, and we're going to go through how much income have you earned? How much are you saving? What are your goals? That's what I had asked, what do you want to do? Do you want to purchase this piece of equipment this year, or do we want to wait and do that next year? Are estimated payments in line so that when we get to tax filing, we're at zero? And so that's where there's really value add there. And honestly, I kind of said this before, where sometimes I've met with clients and I didn't necessarily bring some groundbreaking strategy or implement something crazy, but I just gave them peace of mind that, yep, everything is great. You're going to have a zero due at filing, and everything is set exactly like you need it to be. And there's value in that. And so that's really where we're leaning into, because that's really the feedback that we've gotten, is that people want that proactive approach and relationship that's like, hey, I can ask, is this something I can do? And we bring those ideas and strategies to them. So it's been very positive. We've had tremendous feedback with that.
I was just thinking, and I feel like I put way too many analogies out there, but to keep it simpler, it's like tax planning is like if we're baking a cake, once it comes out of the oven, tax filing is more like the icing. There's only so much you can do afterwards, right? The ingredients are in there, the cake is baked. You can't really undo it. You can do certain things, but that's sort of the process, right? And so tax planning allows you to go, okay, what are we really trying to do before that close out of the year? And that's why it's so important. But to your point, you do have to ask. And I think it's an expectation. There's a lot of really great accountants and CPAs out there that maybe they offer it, maybe they don't, but you have to ask. It's not necessarily a service that's always being offered, but that's where those ideas that you talked about that clients are really after are at. And it does cost extra because it is work in advance of just doing the return, and rather than, hey, what do you have? And let me do the best I can with what you gave me, versus proactively looking at things. And do you see oftentimes that it's impactful for people? I know it's not always impactful, but
right. But yeah, absolutely. So there's been a ton of opportunities. I can think of one that was like really cool. They had some, well, I say really cool. It saved them a bunch of taxes, so I feel like it's cool.
Super cool for the CPA.
Yeah, exactly. But they were able to fund it, so the 401k, and it lowered them down so that they could benefit from qualified business income deduction. And I can't remember the numbers, but like they could contribute like $30,000 into a solo, and it would save them like $20,000 in taxes. Like those kind of like unheard of type situations. There's definitely, I'm very proud of like the value that we're able to provide to our clients with, the recommendations around, go ahead and employ your kids this year and go ahead and fund a Roth for then. And, whatever the strategy may be that we're able to talk about and help them implement.
Yeah, I think what people don't understand is that making a contribution to something that might defer taxes, like a solo, as you mentioned, yes, you're going to have the deferral of the federal, but you don't know what that dropping that tax bracket down does. There's so many phase outs and so many other things, that's like right. You said, the qualified business income deduction. So that you might now fall into and then pick up additional that triggers these additional tax savings.
Yeah,
that's exactly what I was going to say, Paul. Like meeting proactively with a CPA or someone who knows what they're doing, or someone Erin's team or whomever. I've seen where Erin's been able to meet with somebody and say, just this little extra will get you in a different tax bracket, rather than someone looking at it and go, if I say 15,000 versus this, and the nomenclature to help someone understand, right? We spend so much time, and typically physicians or entrepreneurs or whoever's listening to these podcasts, we're investing a tremendous amount of time bringing values correspondingly with money, right? And so we're trading time for money at something. It is so valuable to take a few hours throughout the year to meet with someone like Erin or a qualified CPA to say, here's where I'm headed. Based off my goals, what are some tools you would recommend?
Right.
And that's when Erin's been able to say, hey, we want to look at withholdings. Hey, your income is higher here. You picked up moonlighting. We didn't have that before. Oh, you bought a new house. Oh, you're thinking about buying into a practice. Does that mean you should hold extra cash? Yep. Maybe we don't max that out and we look at something different, or those restricted options. There's so many variables that if we wait to the end of the year, right? The analogy of the cake one's really good, Paul. What I've always thought is like a car.
I'm hungry. That's why.
Everything is around eating. Food is around like a car, right? So which is bigger, the rear view mirror or the front, the windshield? Right. And the rear view mirror tells us exactly
your analogy is better.
Well, there's icing, and then there's icing in the mirror. Yeah. And so, but it's a limited scope to be able to say, hey, based off of that, because of timelines and because of rules, it could be calendar year or April 15th or whatever it is.
Yep.
But withholdings. And how many times have you had someone who said, oh, I wish I had known that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
That comes up quite often, right? Where it's like, oh, if I had known. What they really need to understand is how does that impact them moving forward?
Right.
Right. What does this do to get you closer to your goals? And I think that's what we're looking at. Well, I think tax wise, that's great. You've talked about some entities. You've talked about that. Let's talk about the lack of sleep when you're the spouse of someone, and just this conversation, because look, some of the people on here are going to be physicians. Some of them are going to be someone's going to get 40. They're going to be like, why do you want me to listen to CPA? Listen to the second half of it and share with you some of the things that are going on. Yeah.
This is how I feel.
That's right. This is what's going on. She expressed my feelings.
She knows me.
Walk us through just whatever you're comfortable with. Like, y'all have 3 young kids. You've moved away from family. You've made a decision on residency and school and pick these things and timelines and dollars and student loans. Like, we've walked this journey with you, right? And so we've kind of seen behind the curtain. But to whatever part you're comfortable sharing, kind of walk through. And this is where Paul makes people cry. This is the Diane Sawyer part of our podcast.
Well, to be fair, I did warn her. I called her in advance going, look, we definitely want to share the tax thing, but
this is why
past that.
That's right.
The truth is, spouses have a very unique and powerful perspective that is rarely shared. And so I've been more excited, kind of like you, Chris, on being able to share that part. So,
well, let me tell you how, listen to how personalized it is. When Erin said, we evaluated our income, we looked at this, we evaluated that, it becomes this true we experience because we have to take care of the kids. We have to move. We are away from our family. Right. We are sacrificing for 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, 8 years, whatever that is. Mm-hmm. And then that next decision, I equate it for some of these specialties. It's like a professional athlete.
100%.
What team did we get drafted by? Okay, now, right? Because now we got to move to the city and buy a house. And okay, well, how does that relate? Okay, let's look at this contract. How long is this contract? Mm-hmm. What are the guarantees? This is really what I talk to some of my guys that are in these income levels. So do you mind sharing with us a little bit? Okay.
Yeah, Jordan and I have, it's funny. We went to the same high school. I'm a little bit older than him, so he always likes to joke about that. I have to tell this story. Like, I was a senior when he was a freshman, and the reason that I didn't go to prom with him is because he didn't have his driver's license. So just out there, like, very embarrassing. But so we're from the same area, and we actually got. Did
you go to prom without him then?
I did. I went with someone else. Yeah.
You look, dude. Yeah. Fix your age. I'm going to prom. Sorry about your luck, Jordan. Yeah.
Wasn't meant to be. But we actually dated after he finished college. I had moved back home too. And we got married. And 2 weeks later, he started medical school. So we kind of got thrown right into the fire with that. So during our relationship when we were dating, he was trying to get into medical school and doing applications and interviews and all of that stressful process in itself, much less the actual getting in and starting that process too. So he did med school in Tulsa, and I actually lived in our home in Southern Oklahoma. So we were separated for that 4 years that he was in school. And then
your first 4 years of marriage.
We actually didn't. We were in
almost like a deployment, really.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
I mean, it really,
yeah. It was definitely, and we had 2 kids in that time. So we had our first child when he was a second year student, and then a 4th year student. So there was a lot of transitions that happened there. And we joked, whenever we we're looking at residents, we've never lived in the same zip code. Are we good? We're able to figure this out.
Now that we started our 5th year of marriage.
Yeah. And the reasoning for that was that the family situation, and we had a home that was kind of a family home. It was a unique thing, but we just decided that was the simplest solution. But then when it came time to look into residency, that's actually how I found you guys, is that I knew that we were going to be matching. We had 2 kids, and I was like, we're going somewhere, so let's do it together. And I needed a remote position to be able to move wherever his, job took him. And so my career has honestly been shaped a lot by his career, right? And that's definitely something that we've made together, the decisions that we've taken. I took a job before when he was in med school that I probably maybe would not have taken, but the salary was more impactful. He was in med school, right? Wasn't working. And so it gave us some more flexibility. And so a lot of the decisions that I've made in my career have been based around his. And so, like I said, that's something that we've done mutually and wouldn't change any of it, but that's how powerful medicine's role is and your relationship is. It really, really dictates a lot of the decisions that you guys make as a family. And so, I had 2 kids when I was at home with them when he was away during the week. And so there's a lot of single parenting that happens not by choice from his perspective. He would much rather have been there, but it's just the way that it goes. And so when we moved to Temple, that's where we got our first choice when he matched. And they have an incredible community here with physician spouses to be able to help, acclimate. And, there's a lot of people in our boat. And so, that's nice to have that support. But he works a lot. He's gone a lot. And I have a full-time job too. And we have another kiddo. We had one more during his second year of residency. And so that whole, path that we've taken together has been, it's been beautiful and it's been incredibly challenging, for any spouse out there that's gone through it. And, you're like, well, I'd love to, go on that XYZ with, this friend group, but Jordan's on call. Like his schedule was set 6 months ago and I don't have any say in that decision. And so, or the family events that you don't get to go to, because of the hospital schedule. So like, that's hard, and that's definitely a unique perspective, that you have as a physician spouse.
What about those, evenings when he comes home and you can tell that it's been not a normal day?
Yeah, that's
and you're ready. You've got the kids. You're tired. You've been working a full-time job, but you can just tell. Like, how do you learn to process through that?
Yeah, and I don't know the answer to that. I think we still are figuring that out. But I know there's an instance that comes to mind. A couple weeks ago, he was coming home and I was running out the door to go pick up kids from daycare, and I was like, "Hey, there's so and so on the fridge," and I was kind of going on, and he just stops and looks at me and he's like, I had a bad case today. And he just kind of, without going into detail, it just was unexpected and it didn't go as planned. And it just stops everything, right? You're like, okay, wow. So you have to process what you just went through today at your normal job. And now you have to come home and be a dad and a husband and act like nothing happened. Right. And, our 6-year-old wants to shoot you with a Nerf gun. He doesn't understand that, 2 hours ago, something terrible was happening. And so that has been that separation. It doesn't happen, thankfully, a ton, but when it does, it really slaps you really hard, to be able to, understand how heavy, my worst case scenario is telling someone they owe a bunch of taxes, right? Okay, his is, he has to tell a family that someone doesn't get to come home. Yeah. And so that's a lot, that's a lot to deal with and to
the IRS hasn't gotten that bad
yet. They're not that bad yet. Give them time. So, but it is.
Well, that's so tough. So the time that you get is limited. Right. And then just because you're together doesn't mean that it's awesome either. Yeah. So what are you doing to have the limited time that you do get together keep you connected in a positive way?
They do taxes together.
Taxes.
She's teaching him how to do taxes. Yeah, he's like, this is not what I had planned. Yeah,
get out your Schedule C.
Yeah, he just looks at me like I have 2 heads. That's really, so it's hard, right? So we're in Temple, so we're away from family. So we've gotten connected with some great babysitters. So definitely date night is priority. We actually went down to Austin last weekend and had some great food and celebrated the contract. But, carving out that time for us it's really hard with young kids, and it's hard with, limited budgets and time with all of those things happening. But it's been foundational for us to prioritize that, because you'll look across the table and, you're laughing or whatever. You're like, oh, there's the guy. That's why this is what we're doing. It's not these kids are the problem. They're the reason that we're mad at each other. It's not you. It's these kids and the schedule and all of this stress that happens. So it's a lot. It's a heavy season that we're in. It really is. So
yeah, you probably haven't thought about it yet, but how much longer does he have in training?
I don't have like a countdown in my phone or anything. Yeah. So we're on the back nine. We've got, I think I'm leaving him in May. Like we're going to get the kids out of school, and then I'm
like, you almost made it. Now you're leaving.
Yeah.
Now
that we're done with this, I got to get out of here.
Geez. Yeah.
You can finish this out, kid. Oh, but we're headed back to our home in Southern Oklahoma, and we just signed a contract a couple weeks ago to a group, and I'm really excited. I think we're finally going to see that anesthesia specialty that everybody talks about, the great benefits that come there with that, and I'm excited to finally reap those rewards that we've been putting on. So.
But that was stressful too, right? Finding a place, hoping, we have a location in mind. We'd like to be in this area. I mean, y'all had to really work through some emotional dynamics of saying, okay, let's find the right place. How do we do this? And so that part is the part I think as well when I think about the professional athlete thing. But then there's the negotiation. And then we got to figure this out. And then we got to drill deeper and make sure that we're properly protected and planned and stuff. And so I'm really proud of the way that you've handled all of this stuff since we've met you. And then, you had nothing else going on, so you decided to remodel a house. I mean, you're like, let's just see what I can deal with. Let's stack some stuff. Yeah.
For sure. And the contract that was, Jordan called me. He got a call from the group that we were kind of talking with, and he was, got the offer and they sent it over, and then then you get it and you're like, oh my gosh, okay, so now what do we do with it? And working with an attorney to make sure that is there anything we need to be, I know tax, but I don't know law, right? I can't even read this contract. So, understanding the implications of us paying for malpractice versus them paying for malpractice and what that looks like. What does malpractice cost? Like, how does that go? And navigating all of those questions has been a whole other separate learning process too. The whole, we knew that the anesthesia market, thankfully right now is very good. There's a lot of opportunities, but was that opportunity going to be where we wanted it? Were we going to be able to, was it going to be commuting again? Is this going to be a situation where you're gone for a week, home for a week? And so navigating that too with, decisions of, how much money are we willing to trade for time at home and things like that. So weighing all of those factors as we made that decision, but there's a lot, there's so much. And that's what, whenever I, talk to someone and I'm like, oh, congratulations, you made, and I'm like, no, really, I get it. Congratulations. You made it to the other side. So it's a lot. It's been a lot.
Your life experiences made you even better for the people you work with.
Yeah.
It's harder.
Yeah.
But having lived through it, it really has. Mm-hmm. And, I'm just thinking back to something you brought up earlier was, a spousal support group that was there in the Temple area. And, I think for a large majority of the people that may be listening to this, they intimately know what you're talking about. In fact, they're probably going, yeah, I haven't seen my spouse in, so long, or, this, but there's going to be some others that are going to say, wait, he was effectively away from his family, his two young babies for the first 2 years of their lives while he was going. This is normal. This is why it was so important for you to share this, because it's not all rosy and beautiful sunshine days. It's hard to get through there. So how has the support group that they have, I know they have them at different GME programs. What was some of the highlights of it?
It's been really good. I'm actually the treasurer, shockingly. That worked out. They saw I had a CPA. They're like, we got a job for you.
Who can do the money, Erin?
Yeah. But it's the Temple Medical Education Alliance. And they were really helpful, especially early on. And it's for spouses of medicine. So it's not just wives. They can be, if your husband is in there as well. But, they coordinate play dates and they coordinate, social events and all of these things, because all of these families are living what you are, right? And so different residencies, I think anesthesia has been a beautiful blessing for us. Like, while as intense as it is, like, I think there are worse residencies. I think surgery is one that comes to mind that's really, really intense for a longer period of time. But just having those people that are in a life situation as you are, they have young families, they're having babies, their spouse is gone all the time. They're, let's go get coffee and do this, or just dinner, whatever it may be, has been very, very helpful for me. I'm in Jordan too, just, knowing that I have the support, and I've made some really great friends in that relationship. I think whenever you go through things like this with people, you're like, you get closer, because you have kind of a special relationship that it's like, yeah, well, I'm married to a physician or whatever that is. It's like, no, I know you're okay. Yeah, I get it. Like, it's a totally different perspective to have that. So it's been very, very good. I'm very thankful for them.
Ironically, Erin, it's something that Paul and I just talked about. We were together on Tuesday at a campus, and Paul was presenting to a group, and they were talking about the stress and different things. And so literally on Tuesday, Paul and I were talking about these groups, how important it is for not just the physicians, like they have this working relationship. They are immersed in it, right? 24 to 48 hours at a time, like deep. Right. But the spouses or significant others or children having to understand, we do that for the military and people being away, but the support system could be that. It could be church. It could be other friends. It could be work, family. Right. The connective part there. So,
and you guys, honestly, it's having, the coworkers, even though we're virtual, I've made some tremendous friends who are so supportive, and being able to lean into those relationships too. So having people who are rowing in the same boat with you is beautiful.
So in the vein of thinking about somebody who's a few years behind where y'all are at, maybe just getting started, what do you wish you would have known before you got into all this, or he had started his training, and looking back and going, hey, watch out for this, or, do this?
Yeah, that's the question that's going to make me cry. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I don't know what that's. Yeah. Oh, that's such a good one though. I think the biggest thing is that this too shall pass, right? Like, this rotation won't last forever, or whatever the situation is, good or bad, right? Like both sides of that, and remember that you have a teammate. That's, whether it's us against medical training or whatever it is that you're going through, right? Like, knowing that it's not Jordan making the decision to not be there. It's the profession that he's chosen to do. And so separating out, like, it's not that he doesn't want to be at Thanksgiving. He 100% would rather be here at Thanksgiving. It's not him. It's this profession that we've both agreed that we want our life to be in. And knowing that you have a teammate, and aligning those values, for a greater goal would be my recommendation. Like, make sure that you guys are on the same page. Like, yes, this is what we want. This is why we're doing it. These are the sacrifices that we're making now for this like longer term benefit. And so we've had highs and lows in this. There are seasons, there are rotations where I'm like, oh my gosh, and then there are times when it's been really, really good. We're in a really, really good, we're on the end of this stretch. So it's sunshines and roses over here right now, but it's not always that way, but it's definitely just keep that thought, like the goal in mind for like what you're heading for and like what you're going to do for your family, the advantages that you're going to give yourself. Keep that in mind when it's, we joke about the SICU rotation, how just like terrible it is. And he's gone, he's never here. And when he's here, he's grumpy. So we're like, we just live through that season and next month will be better. So everything shall pass, I guess.
And so how do you hope or view or wish that things will change as he finishes training and you move into practice?
Yeah, well, first paycheck. We're excited. No, I really, what I believe the most exciting thing is having a partner, right? Like having him where he's grilling and he's not, stressed out about some board exam or ITE or whatever that may be, or some rotation that's looming ahead. So having him where he's comfortable, and having that work-life balance where he can pick the kiddos up from school sometimes, and being able to just enjoy what we've worked so hard, the sacrifices that we've put on hold, to enjoy some of that time together. I think that's definitely what we're most looking forward to.
Do you have any big trip planned for the family?
We do. I have several things we're going to take a trip in July. Yeah. We're determining that, but there's been a lot of that's been put on hold. It's like either the schedule wouldn't allow or the funds weren't there. And so, there's definitely some pent up travel that's going to happen. I think we're going to do the whole cheesy Disney trip in the fall too. So we're going to do that as a family. And then we're going to, for our 10-year anniversary, we're going to try to do a big international trip. So we're definitely going to reap some of those rewards that we've been doing. So.
Well, I know we work together every day, but this has been great. It's really fun to hear you share these stories. And before we wrap up, the last question we have, the name of our show is The Patient Physician. And so my question is what does that mean to you?
Ooh, I love the spin of, I'll have to give you all. So there was a client that we had who they were like, what's some advice? He was a physician. He was married to a non-physician, right? And they were having their first baby. And he was like, what's some advice that, what should I do? And I was like, well, when your spouse is asking you about your sick baby or whatever, and, treat them the way that you would treat someone in the hospital, right? That bedside manner and being, what would you do? And he laughed, and I said, because, Jordan, I have to go around Jordan and go to his dad, who's the ER doctor, and ask him, what the real question is, because Jordan doesn't have bedside manner with me. He does with his patients. His patients is a totally different perspective, but that's patient physician, I guess, to tie that in, makes me think of the sacrifices that physicians make and having to answer those same questions and deal with those really hard challenges in life things, and being patient with the goals that they want to achieve in life. I think of patience versus actual patience. So that's kind of what I think about. I don't know if it really ties in, but that's where I go.
No, it does. And it sounds like you have to practice a lot of patience with your physician.
100%. 100%. So.
Yeah. They don't
now, Jordan may ask you to qualify. He's like, can we go through that again? So it's I don't.
He's going to have this on replay. He's going to be like, can you repeat that back?
You said.
For Christmas, let's talk about what Mom said about Dad on patience. Yeah.
That's right. Well, thank you, Erin, and thank you, everyone, for listening to The Patient Physician. If you enjoyed today's story, please like and subscribe, and please share your story with us, because there is someone patiently waiting to hear it.
Thanks, Erin.
Thank y'all.
This conversation was brought to you by Physicians Resource Services, a firm supporting medical professionals to improve their financial situation and pursue their personal and professional goals. The Patient Physician is produced in Austin, Texas. Editing and sound design are in the hands of the PodConnects Podcast Network. Please email questions or show ideas to info@physiciansrs.com.